these are extraordinary times and everybody is adjusting to the new normal. Business organizations are also adjusting to this. For instance, here at Multimedia Group, some of my colleagues are off working from home. We're here working in the office. There are changes going on. And in the midst of all of this, HR managers have to cope. And so we're going to have a conversation around that. Joining me in studio is HR expert David Mills to share some perspective on how HR managers can cope with this situation. And I'm glad to have you in studio. Are you doing well? Are you fine? Are you observing precautionary measures?
I think, like you said, these are extraordinary times. I'm doing very well. I'm observing the precautionary measures.
Great. And so let's start on that note, precautionary measures in any business organization. As an HR person, what should be the focus?
So I guess the precautionary measures are actually out there. We know what we're supposed to do. So you quarantine yourself, stay home, stay safe is the mantra that is going on. What HR must fundamentally do is to intensify the communication of this. So this is a change management program. Like you said, these are extraordinary times. When something is not normal, it requires change. And what the role HR plays at the epicenter of change management is constant communication. So I expect HR managers to be constantly communicating with their staff via multiple channels. So they should be doing flyers, emphasizing the precautionary measures. There should be videos, audio recordings, perhaps from the chief executive, clearly signaling warnings to staff on how to conduct themselves, go about their lives, so that we can adapt to these times.
I guess the difficult part is how to balance productivity and employee safety. So for instance, like I said, here at Multimedia Group, some of my colleagues are working from home, but you have to still ensure that you are meeting your targets and all of that around this time. How do you balance that?
That's extremely important. So HR is at the interface of the business and people. Often people say, I want to be in HR because I love people. It's not enough. You've got to also look at the business's interest. So at this time, or in these times where things are not normal, we expect HR to balance that act carefully. Now, a couple of things are important. Now, you can look at flexible working models or go completely work from home policy. Like my company has done, Lineage Services has actually instructed that we all work from home. You know, the challenge with that system is employee management trust. So it's a two-way affair. Does management trust employees enough to still get behind their desk wherever they are and work and deliver on performance targets? And will employees justify that trust by actually delivering on objectives? That is often the challenge.
Right, and so I was going to come to the subject of working from home and how effective it is, and how are you able to even monitor what the employee is doing at home. How do you go about that?
I think it's quite simple. So technology drives agile working or flexible working models. Clearly, we can use some Microsoft tools. So Planner, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Outlook. These are viable tools you can use to track people's performance. So what we need to emphasize is that people must set their performance objectives just like they would have done if they were at work, upload them on Planner. We expect line managers to critically review and have a conversation to agree on those performance targets. So we call this performance contract. Once I agree with you, then I can hold you accountable.
Right.
And on a daily basis, line managers must review these actions or objectives and ensure that the results that employees are churning out are in tandem with the objectives they set. So it requires one, using technological platforms, and I've talked about these office tools, but also even more important, managers maintaining a strict adherence to monitoring, else nothing will get done. In HR, we say that people do what you inspect, not what you expect.
Right. Let's talk about this very important one, the next one, which is scary for most people because you're seeing it happen where some organizations are already laying off staff. It should be pretty difficult for HR managers at this point when you have to lay off people who would have been effective enough for this crisis. It's difficult.
Yeah, clearly not a pleasant experience, but I guess it's necessary. I mean, in business, you take hard decisions. So business is both head, heart, and intuition. And HR managers must understand these things. Somebody has said that the reason HR is sometimes irrelevant in organizations is that we bring too much passion conversations to the table. So where the finance guy or the CEO is talking about numbers, HR is talking about passion. So where would the people eat? What would they go to? Those conversations are important, but sometimes they can actually kill business. I think that every HR must understand their talents. So you have to tier your talents into 3. You've got to have your top 20%, what you call your high potential talents. Have your mid 70%, the people we call average performers, and your least 10%, we call them the bad apples. Those are people you want to kick out of the door. So at this particular time, a stringent performance management system is important. Like I said earlier, it's tied into the question you asked earlier. So line managers must monitor performance targets on daily basis, weekly basis. Truth is, those who have been hiding behind excuses and I went for a meeting, etc., not to get things done, will be exposed. Like Baumia said, once the fundamentals are weak, you'll be exposed. So clearly, those who are not working will be exposed around this time because the agile, flexible working model requires that you actually deliver results. Now, let me give you a very practical example. If you are in the office working, you can get away with, I couldn't send this report to this client because of this and that. I went somewhere, etc., Once you are working from home, like I said, you have to earn trust. So once you log in onto Planner, that at 4 p.m., I will send a report to this client. The expectation is that I'm looking out, as your line manager, I'm looking out for an email at 4 p.m. with me in copy, with that report sent to the client. Once the report is not sent, the most logical conclusion for me is that it didn't work. So that's where people must understand that agile comes with more responsibility and we must earn that trust.
Okay, and so I'm working and on top of my head, I'm thinking I may be asked to go home. It's difficult for me. So how do you manage that so that your employees are also not burning out out of anxiety, frustrations, fear? That's difficult.
I think, like I said, hiring and firing are business decisions. They're not sentimental decisions. So clearly, a stringent...
Sometimes it's difficult to, take emotions out of it.
It is because of the kind of culture we have in Africa by extension. I mean, like I said, if you fire somebody, he brings his uncle and great-granduncle to come and apologize, forgetting that if the whole business tanks down, it affects everybody. So we can't sacrifice the entire business in the interest of one person. I think that HR managers must understand this. We must be business-centric. We must understand that business metrics matter in these times. These are times where businesses, our revenue inflows are declining. Because I work in a company where most companies were recruiting for us asked us to put a standstill or a hold on it. Trainings have been cancelled. We are thinking of innovative ways of still carrying out training through virtual platforms and webinars, etc. Clearly, you have to reduce your cost. So revenues will be affected. These are times we have to look at the bottom line and take very serious decisions. So what the HR must do is to provide evidence of who those top least 10% are. And let's find ways to manage them out. If you don't do that, what happens is that because they're not working, their work is now added onto the work of others. And that's where people burn out. Because if I have to do mine and do somebody else's, it's frustrating. It's more frustrating even when I find out that we are paid the same.
Okay, so run us through what HR operating model we should be executing in these times on the part of HR leaders.
Yeah, I think 2 things. So HR must look at strong business partnering. They must be having conversations with business leaders, those who run the commercial side of things, and know what is going on, what decisions ought to be made, and also keep in touch with staff, especially those who have actually gone completely work from home policy or actually doing some flexible or shift system. It's important to stay in touch constantly with employees, let them know that the company also has interest in them, cares about them, but even more important, also urge them on to stick to their targets and deliver on expectations.
Okay, and what's the role of leadership in all of this?
They must lead the way. So people do what they see their leaders do, not what their leaders tell them to do. And I think that in these times, leaders must walk the talk. They shouldn't drive the people to do what they expect them to do without doing it themselves. So they must
and so earlier today we're having this conversation in our office. So people are working from home. The work is being done anyway. So after this crisis, should this, cause a review of our working model? I mean, if people can effectively work from home, deliver the targets and all of that, shouldn't we be having a conversation around that and not having to say, everybody comes to the office,
Trust me, I think that it's an age-long conversation. Now, if you look at trends in Africa, we're often late in terms of technological innovations by about a decade and a half, if not 2 decades, sorry. So in HR, for instance, there's a model called HR business partnering. It was mooted by a guy called Dave Rich, professor in the US. Now, we're still struggling to implement a system in Africa. And this was a book he wrote in '97, over 20 years ago. That's how late we are in Africa. So it's sad. Truth is that coronavirus has brought to the fore an aged conversation we've been having about letting people work from home. If you look at the current workforce that we have in the work environment, the millennials, and many of us are, research shows that they prefer to work from 3 places: beaches, hotel lounges, and their rooms. And if anything at all, the company I work for, I'm seeing clear evidence of how effective agile working models are compared to sitting in the offices.
Right. Thank you so much, David Mills, for some insight into HR and how to manage in these times. Interesting conversation. Appreciate it. There's more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Darryl Kwao. There you go, myjoyonline.com/business. Thanks for watching. We are back same time tomorrow.